Hey guys, I missed last week's video. It's been really crazy. Between Eastern Europe, China, San Francisco, LA, and now San Diego, a lot's been happening. I'll talk about thoughts and impressions on how China went. Game developer conference in San Francisco where we took a big risk and dumped like a ton of money on a booth and how that's playing out. A psychological study I got underway. Situation with investors, starting to receive our first offers. Not quite what I'm wanting, but lots in the works. Hollywood, staying with friends, doing frog poison, yoga, a GameTree redesign, and yeah, back in San Diego. So this is San Diego now. I guess I'll show you here. It's kind of a paradise. I forget how much so until I got here, but it's like kind of surreal, just like how perfect Del Mar is. It's actually it kind of like bothers me because so much of the world has so many problems, and here, just living in a place like this, it's so easy to just get caught up in life and to just everything be normal and to lose perspective of how nice everything is. You just kind of get used to stuff. Everything that's bad to you might be not even a problem to other people, and life just has a way of mellowing out. So that's part of why I think so much of life is just problems that are overrated and why some places aren't necessarily better than others. It's about making do with what we have. So back to China. Overall takeaway is that Chinese people copy each other a lot, and it's not worth going there anytime soon unless we go in like full force, and that means having a partner like Alibaba or Tencent, but we need to be bigger to partner with them. So it's basically something that I'm going to re-examine in like a year until I go in force and try to dominate the market, because if we go now, there'll be like 20 competitors like copying us within like 6 months. So it's better not to go at this moment. But something about the Chinese investors is that they tend to do a lot of smaller rounds when they're investing, and it's super big about relationships, like hanging out or drinking, doing stuff like that. GDC went well, the Game Developer Conference, and Game Developer Conference is like the biggest gaming conference in the world. It's in San Francisco. It was good seeing a lot of friends. Some friends hosted me. Dario Nardi, who's somebody I admire a lot, he's one of, if not the main, like force in the psychological world community, came up and had his like brain scanning equipment. And we're probably going to be working together at like very high interest. And I also stayed with him in LA. He was hosting me. It was kind of funny at GDC. I was so sleep deprived with like 3 to 4 hours of sleep per night for like 10 days that my brain was only showing 8% of like an average person's brain activity. And that was a little concerning because that's like pretty far off. And then I don't know if it's because of lack of sleep or if I just have a weird brain. So it's almost like being told that you have like an STD, maybe. And so we finished up another brain scan yesterday morning, and it was showing a little bit more normal stuff. But something weird is that my brain fluctuates between low activity and like very high activity, like very unusually large amount. And that also I tend to shut down a lot of the brain, not based on the regions that I'm not using. And in general, I have a tendency to hyper focus and ignore a lot of information. Like on average, we can keep track of about 5 or 6 pieces of information at a time, and I think I only do like maybe 2 or 3, but then I tend to like hyper focus on those more. So GDC in general went well. A lot of potential investors and partners, but still seeing how those play out. Met a couple more in Orange County who I'm going to be potentially raising from, or they'll be helping me raise or something, and maybe partnerships out of those. But time will tell. What else? Yeah, friends helping a lot. Family drove up a booth. Really lucky that I got help from them, because that's not something I had the time or even money to afford necessarily to be able to like bring stuff up from the family business in San Diego. So they helped out with that. And then friends in San Francisco is just super useful, and it keeps reinforcing this point that really it's our relationships that matter the most. That's where the investments have come from so far. People believing in me, help along the way. Like I can't stress how important relationships are, and it makes me feel like even more honored in a way that we're helping gamers build friendships. Just seeing how that's kind of a lot of the core of like what's useful and what makes us successful in life. It can help us create companies or resist shocks, things like that. So like I'm realizing how important that is, and how this is especially true in the face of like a loneliness epidemic going on. Also set up like a psychological study between like basically my 2 favorite psychologists, where we're basically going to be analyzing this advanced form of personality psychology that goes from 16 to 512 types that this guy David Powers invented. And so he's going to be giving people that he's typed, and then mapping that out through Dario and RD on how different regions of the brain activate, and to see if there's correlations between this system of like brain readings and people's personalities, and to see if we can correlate those scientifically. Already the personality stuff has actually become scientific because people can independently come to the same conclusions, even among like wildly, crazily, statistically unlikely combinations. But this is just another level of science adding to it. In general, though, like the bigger picture is to build like a personal recommendation engine, like a smarter Google for certain kinds of searches that are based on your unique tastes and personality, your own psychology. So, if, for example, it's like I want to go to a restaurant with my kid, and then it'll tell you like what's the best place considering your tastes and your price points and where you are and all of that. So it's not the most useful for everything, but instead of just a popularity-based approach, you can learn like what are the best diets for you, the best exercise regimes, good role models based on your strengths and weaknesses, stuff like that. And GameTree is a stepping stone. And an investor recently told me that that's much more interesting in California, and that we should be pitching that as the thing that we're raising for, and that GameTree is just the first product. So starting to reamp our deck and then also practice sending that message out more, because in Ukraine you can't really say that message because the investors want to see little things that are immediately profitable. In Europe as well is more on that side of the fence. But I guess now that I'm in California, it's a lot easier to do things, which is more in line with the way I think, which is very big picture. So we'll see how that goes. So then also very lucky, I was at a friend's brunch in San Francisco and sitting across from the Y Combinator like main admissions person. Y Combinator is like Harvard plus Stanford put together for startups. It's like by far the #1 acceleration program, and like every company that goes in raises millions of dollars afterwards. And he said our applications like easily in the top 1%. So I'm like really hoping, super fingers crossed, especially because Shadi, who's a friend and investor in GameTree, said he would join us with marketing if we made it in, like as our CMO. So it's like a double incentive. So I'm like super hoping that we make it in. And if we make it in too, then I'm going to go to Mongolia for a month in May. And that's something I've been putting off for like 7 or 8 years because I want to get to know nomads better and like have more like off computer time. And it's almost like a final rite of passage into like adulthood, I feel like. And especially I'm turning 30 now in a couple weeks. So it's like a really good timing to kind of like prove myself in nature and see what primitive people are like. And there's just a lot of benefits that I see to it that we can't really get living in our normal routines. And then Shadi also said he might drop in on that as well. So that would be fun. We could be out there brainstorming on the plains of Mongolia, like the least densely populated country in the world, where we're like wanting to be in front of computers working and instead just working on ourselves and our ideas. So LA was interesting. Dario hosted me and his partner Judah. Super cool. I'm really excited. I'm going to be moving there. Ukraine's been amazing and I love it. People there are very authentic and it's a good place to get things done. But for marketing and sales, it's much better to be in California, and that's the stage GameTree's at. So I spent a lot of time looking at different neighborhoods, and I have a big aversion to LA. Being from San Diego, they're kind of like more stressed out, crazy versions of San Diegans. What I realized is that San Diego business is way too slow. Bay Area is also kind of crazy and overpriced. But LA, it's such a big city that there's actually all sorts of people, and I met so many cool people that it's actually a pretty exciting prospect of moving there, as long as I just avoid some of the toxic ones. But it is like 20 million people that are in the LA area, a major city, so it's a great place to do like marketing. It's one of the world capitals for that, as well as for gaming. So looking at different neighborhoods. Also got to check out the Hollywood scene and go to like some parties and like secret places, and that's like really fun too. Just being able to kind of, it was just a really overwhelming exposure to a lot of stuff that I wasn't quite expecting. And then went to like Kundalini Yoga, which is a new kind of yoga that's really into breathwork and stuff. Kind of weird to me, but I feel like there's a lot of wisdom in these sort of weird practices that seem like kind of not scientific, but there's sort of a mind over matter thing going on. So interested to try a little bit more of that. And then also did like combo, which is a frog poison. And essentially, here it is there's like 6 holes burned into my arm, and then like tree frog poison was put in. And I originally was offered this after an ayahuasca ceremony once, but I said no because I didn't know much about it. But Dario, the neuroscientist, said that like it's actually really good for you and it's legal. So I did that in Venice Beach day before yesterday, and I'm afraid that I might have cancer, like early stage cancer. Probably not, but I got really sick for like 5 weeks, and I went to 5 doctors, had 5 blood tests, and nobody knew what was wrong with me. And I also had like a super swollen, like that big, like gland in my armpit, It was really weird, so I'm trying to like take better care of myself, and this is good for fighting cancer as well as like antioxidizing. But it is not fun, but I still highly recommend it because the best paths to grow usually aren't fun. Usually the hard path is the one that is the healthy one or the better choice. Move towards resistance. So yeah, did the combo, and I felt like first the back of my neck was like tingling. I felt like heat waves. I felt like the back of my like body was moving towards the front of my body. My eyes got super bloodshot. My face was puffy. My lips like got swollen. My skin turned like white and purple, and I started vomiting like a couple minutes later. And it was like pretty bad for maybe 3 or 4 minutes, and then it was just uncomfortable for maybe another 10. But it was really interesting experience, and it's apparently super good for you. I'll put a link here as well, so if you guys are interested in trying that, or if you're in LA, you can check out like the person at the link if you want to try this out. But I think it's a good investment. I almost didn't want to do it because I'm still bootstrapping until I close this round of investment, and I was like, oh, it's like kind of expensive. But then I realized, one, that we that this is going to pay back in productivity. People have a lot more energy for a couple months after doing this, relative, and it's totally worth it. And also, the practitioner said that it shouldn't be a big deal because we sort of manifest the things we want. And I've been finding that's true. Coming from a place of fear, you want to conserve things, and I find that putting myself out there or buying things when I'm like not crazy, but like for example, even the shirt, I've been avoiding buying clothes much like a bit lately. But just by kind of doing the things, like it sort of creates a mentality of abundance, of like being able to give, of love, openness, relaxation, and it creates a lot more opportunities and attracts the sort of things you need to sustain that and the kinds of right people. So I just went ahead with it and like really don't regret it at all. A couple last things is doing a rebrand for GameTree. I guess in a similar line, we don't have a lot of money, but I've been wanting to do this for a while, and there's this firm that I really admire that does the brand archetypes, where they analyze and how we personify people as companies. It's something that we do, and these people in Australia are like my favorites at it, so I just hired them to basically do sort of a brand redesign for GameTree. It's not something that's going to get us more users, it's not adding to the tech, but it's something that I think is better to do sooner than later, and something I've really been wanting to do for a while, and having just the right message is really important to me, especially for a company that gathers so much data, that it really has to have like kind of the right feel to it. And they're called White River Design. And lastly is yesterday came back down to San Diego. Traffic throughout Southern California is crazy now, like even on Sundays, like at random times throughout the day now. Maybe we'll have a motorcycle again when I'm here to bypass some of that. But basically celebrate with the family, and this is only my second time in 3 years being home. So it's nice to finally be back and to hang out with family and catch up with some old friends here.